Hello everybody and welcome back to Jake's RC Stuff, and today we're back with some T1 Ranger shenanigans, and unlike the last episode, we're actually going to do something on it instead of just making a decision, realising I don't have the parts I needed, giving up, and ripping apart a poor unsuspecting model that will go in the bin. That's right, we're actually going to do some stuff. I have the magical soldering board that isn't that magical, but anyway. So we are going to be doing some soldering today. What I want to get soldered up is all of the connections for all the stuff that we're going to be plugging into our flight controller. So primarily that is going to be our, what is this, an Avatar Nano V3 camera, and I call it video transmitter, it's technically an air unit. We also have our Maytech GPS and compass. And we also have the TBS Crossfire SE receiver. And I know where all of them are going to go. I know roughly what the wiring is going to be like. And if you remember the last episode, what we were missing was some 4-pin connectors. So from the Pi Hut, as you can tell, I think if you go to their website and put in the code there, it'll bring you up. This is a 4-pin, 0.1 inch pin depth, or whatever it's called, connector. But these work great on these pins, and as you can tell, this is 4 pins, so you can have your positive, negative, transmit and receive pins for your GPS if it hasn't got a compass, for your crossfire, and for your video transmitter, whether it be HD and you transmit and receive, or whether it is an analog receiver and you've got positive, negative video, and then the sort of frequency changing pin that I've forgotten the name of. But they're great. 2 problems with this model. Number one, because it has a compass, it actually needs 6 wires. And also, to add the video transmitter, if you look at the pins, the way they're laid out is actually ground volts, video out, and then transmit and receive. So actually need to miss a pin, so I could redo with a 5-pin connector. Now I'm not sure if there is a 5-pin connector. I didn't really look because I didn't know I needed one until about 15-20 minutes ago, but they didn't have any 6, which is really annoying. So what I've bought is some 8-pin ones that we can sort of cut down and mess about. We can have the pin removed in the middle to avoid what would be the analog video pin, and get the transmit and receive pins on the other side, so we can do that fine. Now, in terms of positioning stuff, the first 2 things are kind of set. You know, the camera is going to go in the front, and because you've got that length of wire to play with, video transmitter is going there. GPS, again, sort of set where that's going. That's going to go in that rear thing. The big question was where we're going to put the crossfire receiver. Now, on a big model, ideally, you want all of your video or anything that emits signals, basically, to be as far away as possible. And that's often why where you'll see, you know, someone will have their TBS crossfire out on one wingtip, they'll have the video transmitter with its analog out on the other wingtip, and then GPS in the middle. You could swap the video transmitter, because obviously this, as I say, would have to go in the middle, and have the GPS on the wingtip. I used to do that, but some people think there's like timing issues if it's a really long run of wire and interference and blah blah blah. I have run GPS in wingtips before and not had an issue, so your mileage may vary. But obviously when I modelled this small and the pins are already used up in the wing for your tilt mechanism and things like that, or if it's just a small model where you can't get stuff in the wingtips, you want to make a compromise. Basically, you have a length of the fuselage, whether it be just this long or if you'd be going all the way down to the tail. It's up to you what the compromise is. And a lot of what I've seen online, both specifically with the T1 where people have put stuff, as well as where people put stuff on mini quads, because you have the same 3 things. You know, if it's one of the long distance ones, you'll have GPS, you'll have your radio transmitter, you know, this, you know, your crossfire or your ELRS, and you'll have your HD system in the front. This and this, so the GPS and the crossfire, always seem to be together at the back. So with that in mind, that is what we're going to do. And because it's going to be the easiest to solder up, because all the pins are in one order and it's only 4 pins, you don't have to really molest anything, I need to really choose different vocabulary for that. I don't really need to change anything, that's what I'm looking for. We're going to solder this up first. So I've kept the soldering iron away because this model has already been a victim of attack from a soldering iron. So I'll get the soldering iron out, I'll get it plugged in, we'll get some actual solder equipment out other than a soldering iron, and then we will be ready to solder in our first part. And again, not only do you need to know how many pins you need, you also need the length. Now luckily, because the flight controller is going to be going roughly here, and the receiver is going to be going roughly there, we can just use, we cut one of these in half and solder it up. What I will do as well is, let me get this out of the bag so there's less reflection. As you can see, the cables are sort of just random colours, they don't really mean anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually swap that black and sort of browny grey, it's hard to, basically the black, those two middle colours, are going to be swapped around so that white and weird browny colour are transmit and receive, whichever way around, and then black and red will actually be for positive and negative. So yes, let me get the soldering iron out, let me get this cable cut in half, and we'll be prepared to solder that up. So back in a sec. Okie dokie, so I have done my rewiring even, and I had to basically completely change the order. I think everything other than white is in the same place. So black at the end, and it is essentially going to go, I believe, in those pins there. So you can see the black and the red are lined up, and the two other sort of fairly random colours will go that way. And we'll work out what we're doing with that in a moment. Let's do the power ones first. So I've sort of stripped the wire. Soldering iron is on. I hope it's hot. We'll find out in a moment. So we'll just turn that. The one that's slightly squared off is always the negative one. Right, that's the black one on. We'll do red now. Okay, so we're going to have a good close look at this. Nothing is touching between the two. Give it a bit of a yank and it's not immediately popped off. So that's black and red, because I know black's the square one, the red one follows after it. So now channel 1 needs to go to RX, which luckily is the next one along, so we can just solder them as they are on this connector. So if I show you that, the brown one is the next one, and that is the one that we're going to solder onto the next pad. So, and there we are. So it's all in the order of the colours, it's all nice and flat, all nice and neat. And yeah, so that's all ready to go in. That can sit there, that'll get plugged in around there. The fine details we can work out later. So now, what we've got to do next is figure out our compass. So with this, we have the compass. You can plug it in at either end. I believe it does the same thing. It just makes it easier because the compass obviously has to go to where that forward arrow is. And you can have the wire either come out the front or the back, depending on what's going to be easy for you. We're going to have it coming out the front. And it's going to be super easy to begin with. Red and black are going to be red and black. I tell you what, let's get one of these. Oh, these are a bit longer than the other ones. So there we are. Here's one of these 8-pin connectors. I'm just going to fold it up, get it nice and sort of bent quite sharply at the end. Give it a snap in half. So we've got all of these many wires, which I'm just going to gently pull apart so they're all separate. And what I might actually do, I know some of you might think this is a bit of a waste, that I'm buying a cable and then immediately ripping it to bits. What I'm going to do is use our knife to just remove all of these, and then we're going to work out how these all wire together. So obviously red and black will go to red and black for positive and negative. The other ones I'll try and match up colours as best as possible, but where I can't, I will promptly give up and just choose something random. What I also like to do normally is, because these are completely different, so like just because I've pulled out this one 8-pin connector, another 8-pin connector will have completely different wires in a completely different order, and may have colours this one doesn't. So for example, this one doesn't have a yellow, and I know one of the colours that are on the GPS is yellow. And look, here's one of the 8-pin ones that has yellow in it. So that one may have actually been a better option. No, we've got a green, we've got a blue. We might have to swap yellow for purple, but we'll probably be all right. So that's fine. What I'm also going to do, because of what we're doing here, I'm just looking roughly where the GPS is going to go. Look at the sort of wire stack. Make sure we've got plenty of wire spare. I'm going to snip. Okay. And we can disconnect that. And what that'll make sure is that we're not going to cause any problems. So, I think just because I've really got to concentrate to make sure I get this all wired up properly, I am going to stop the video, but then I'll show you the finished article once we get there. So, see you in a sec. Okay, so soldering is complete. And as you can see, it's actually, he says, in the model. So it's in, lots of little white bits of heat shrink there. Got it wired up. The wiring here is definitely not the same as the wiring here. You really do need to look at the Maytech diagram on the website. I have also done a little bit of cutting of foam, sort of these two corners and a little bit in here to get that connector in. So we can get that in there, and then get that to fit in over the top, and I'll probably just use a bit of tape to hold that in. But that is in, and that is ready to connect. So the next one is going to be a little bit, just a little bit more interesting. So when we were putting this together, I managed to fill up the holes for these pins. Can we get the autofocus to autofocus for those two pins there? It turns out I need them, so that's going to be fun, unless I can hook it up in a slightly different way. Yeah, because I don't put battery voltage for it. Because it can only do 12 volts, so I could really do with that 9 volt pin at the very least, and we may be able to do it. So yeah, that 9 volt pin is the one that is, I'll try this focus again, is the one closest to the edge that does actually have a bit of a hole left in it. So, fingers crossed, I might be able to just snip one of these off and get that soldered in. Because all I need is power. I don't need the other one. I just need power, and that will be what we use for that. So, bear with me. I'm going to try soldering that off camera just again so I can fully concentrate. I'm not bothered about what I'm doing with you guys at that particular time. So let me get the soldering iron back across and we'll give it a go. Okie dokie, so I've managed to get a pin soldered in. It is by no means my best work, but there is now a pin in there. I couldn't even get it with the bit of plastic round, and they're not 100% lined up, so I've got to sort of wiggle and get it in. But I'll get this put back together, because as you can tell I have taken the board in half. I'll get it back together and I'll get the pins soldered up. So what we're doing is the layout of this, let me get the Maytech website up on this laptop behind. So, excuse me. It is ground 9 volts, then video transmitter, which is for analog, and then transmit for and receive for. Now, my understanding is in Arduplane, transmit and receive for already set up for DJI OSD, which, fingers crossed, I'm not putting DJI in it, also works for Walkstyle. I honestly don't know, but we'll figure that out. So yeah, so what I'm going to have is obviously positive, negative, or technically negative, positive, then a gap, and then receive and transmit, because whatever it is on the Maytech, you want to be the opposite for your actual device, because obviously you transmit to the receive and you receive to the transmit. Hopefully you can see what I mean by that. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to get all the wires out again, just because it's easiest doing it that way. I'll trim the connector down so it's 5 pins wide, but I'm obviously only going to put 4 pins inside it. So it'll be red and black, and then probably I'll just do white and blue or something. We'll see. Or green and blue, that's more sort of data colours. But anyway, yes, let me get this connector taken apart, and we'll see where we go from there. But with me a moment. Okay, so I've had a little bit of a think. And the first thing I thought was, well, if I solder this cable, I haven't taken it apart yet, but if I solder this cable onto the end of there, it isn't long enough. It's not going to get to the back of the plane where the flight controller is going to be. So I decided I will use the wires that come with the TBS Crossfire receiver, there they are, to extend it. But I then thought, well, hang on, if, and I'm having another think about as I literally say this, but how hard would it be to get a 5-pin wide, even though it's 4 wires, connector through there. And I've decided I'm going to go down one of two routes. Either I am just going to solder it all up on one big long cable. I'll cut this down and check the size of it, and that'll basically tell me. If that connector is too big, then what I will do is I will make another connector near the front using 4 pins left over from the flight controller. I will solder them directly onto here, and again it'll only be 4 wide because we don't need that space yet, so that'll get soldered onto there. And then we'll go from a 4 pin to this with the spacing down to the back, and that might actually even give us enough length without having to need the spare bit in the middle. Yes, I'm not 100% sure, because also I've got to remember what to go to battery in this, so there's no point in the cables being too taut, because they need to be at the side in order to slide the battery in. I still do not know what battery goes in this plane. I presume it's 4S, but I don't know if it's like a 2240C. Would that fit? Does it need to be 1800? I don't know. I haven't really found that for the VTOL anywhere. Nobody seems to really say it. So if you have one of these, not a custom setup, but the one that actually you can buy as a conversion kit, let me know what battery you use, and I need to order 2 or 3 of them. So yeah, I can get it set up on 4S. I've got 4S batteries of XT60s on. That'll be fine. But to actually fly the bloody thing, I'm actually going to need a battery that'll fit. So yeah. So let me get this connector deconstructed for now. I'll get it cut down to 5 pins wide, and then we can see which tree I need to be barking up. Okie dokie, so there we are. So I've put our extension in, as you can see. I've also got the 5-pin connector with only 4 pins in it. With the space in the middle for that, was it a VTX pin it's labelled as? Yeah, so we're going to miss that. So it goes -9 volts, miss a pin, white, which is receive on the thingy end, on the camera end, goes to transmit, and transmit, which is that sort of greyish colour, goes to receive on the board. So that's that. What I'm going to need to do is I have cut the foam a little bit so that we can get that connector in there, like so. And the connector is going to go out that back hole, because the antenna needs to come out this side, and then we can feed the camera down that side and run it into this front hole here. Now to get the camera down there, we are going to need to sort of take this apart, disconnect this cable here, refit it again, which is going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, so I'll do it in a sec. It also does worry me that there's basically nothing, no sort of strain relief on here. There's a bit of glue, but that's about it. So yeah, let me get this case taken apart, let me get the cable disconnected, we can feed the cable through, and we can look at getting it sort of half fitted. Okie dokie, and just like so, the air unit is in. So made sure it orientates that way so the air blows over the fins. I took the camera wire off at this side, and you can see it goes down there, and you've got our main wires going down there. I'm not going to show you me taking those wires off, simply because it felt so sketchy doing it. You can Google it online and find a YouTube video on how to do it. I'm not going to show how you do it in case you knacker it up. I've also learned via my Googling it that it's for like a little peanut camera to go on the bottom if you've got landing gear, which I'm not sure if I'll use or not. And of course we've got our camera poking through at the front. It has got the lens cover on for now. I'll keep it on until ready to fly. But yeah, so there's plenty of cable there to get it sort of wired all the way to the back, because that is where it's going to end up going. I can sort of tape it along the edge. Now the video transmitter, part of the air unit, I'm going to have the aerial coming out of a tube here. Now you may have seen these on the channel before if you're not completely new to the channel. If you are, subscribe. There we are, I've worked that in. Now I've used these quite a bit for FPV. So these are control snakes, and they're usually used, let's say you've got a glider and you've got the servos all the way in the front and you need to get control all the way to the rear. You can use these control snakes, or later on where we started using them was for throttles only, because you know, most sort of 3D aerobatic models you want a nice stiff control rod, as it were, with blue. But what I actually bought these for, and what these are used for, was for the V antennas for the 1.2 days. So you've got the yellow that fits inside really neatly, of this blue tube. So you'd have a little bit of blue tube glued in the model, and then you'd have quite a bit of the yellow to stick it up nice and high, and have the V antenna on the end. Now what's good with this is that actually means I've got a hell of a lot of more blue left than I have of yellow, and what that means is we can use this blue tube for this because it fits absolutely bob on, really snug. So yeah, these are control snakes available from regular model shops. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue a section of that in the model. The wire can come out the bottom, go up through there, and the connection for it is sort of around here. So I'll probably have it sort of maybe no further back than that rear screw to make sure we've got plenty of room to get up and get in and get whatever. And if you cut these, so that's how it looks at the end. If you cut them with like snips, they get a little bit squeezed at the end. And what's good about that is it means that it won't move anywhere. It's just that little bit tighter just to grip onto the tube. Either it won't go all the way down and descend through the bottom, or if you put it in from this side, as you just saw, it's so tight, it really won't go anywhere. It won't go in at all now. But yeah, that is absolutely snug as a bug in the rug. Now, I don't know if these are different sizes. If I get the one for the Sky Surfer, yes, the one for the Sky Surfer might be a bit bigger. And obviously, if you're someone who puts custom antennas on, the world is your oyster with that. So yeah, there's that. And then to be honest with you, we're ready to put the flight controller in and program it up. I'm probably going to 3D print a board for the flight controller to go onto. So the board itself will probably screw into the wooden rails. I can't speak tonight. Here, and then this flight controller bit will actually just double-sided tape. I've got some really good double-sided tape that I can use because the holes in there aren't quite wide enough to go into this wooden track system. But yeah, going very well, very productive day, and of course, to put in at a later date, the crossfire receiver, which will probably go in somewhere like that. Have the antenna fed through clipped in here and put back sort of behind the wing. But we need to make sure, of course, that it doesn't get hit by the propeller of the rear motor. And I do, if possible, want to be able to take the wings off. But I'm not sure how possible that is going to be. But I think I'm going to leave it there. What I'm going to do tonight before I go to bed is just screw this flight controller back together so I don't lose the screws and don't risk getting these internal pins bent. But I think that's going to be it. So if you enjoy this video, I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm not sure how much editing I'm going to do. I'll try and edit it down a little bit for you. But if you did enjoy it, please click the like button. If you want to see some more, remember to subscribe. If you've got any constructive questions, comments, feedback, anything like that, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll see you another time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.